Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 9 of the Elliot Loney Podcast. Today I called up my good mate Callum Sincair, and I think you guys are really going to love this one. Without any further ado, let's get stuck into it. Ladies and gentlemen, a very special guest joins us today on the Elliot Loney Podcast. A man I've known for a very long time, actually since high school days. We've been friends for a long time. He's here with us now, Mr. Callum Sinclair. Sinkers, what's going on, brother?
Not bad, Loney. I was a bit disappointed with your intro. I thought you would have done it in a few of those impersonation voices that you've given us over the years. But anyway, I'm going very well. Thanks for having me on, mate. Really appreciate it.
No worries, mate. It's great to have you here. I thought maybe before we get stuck into the nitty gritty of it, we'd maybe reflect on.
Here we go.
On some of the high school days. Now, like for some of our listeners and our viewers right now, they probably don't know that I've known you for a very long time. Like we've been mates since high school days, and I've watched you ascend the ladder of AFL superstardom over the years. But before you were the huge specimen alpaca thoroughbred unicorn roaming around on the MCG with your chest out, deltoids flexed.
Many people have called me the baby giraffe on the field, mate.
Not with those cars, mate. Surely not. You were just a humble young man, someone I met in high school. So talk us through your early days. Talk us through your upbringing, your family life, and some of those fundamentals.
A pretty broad question, mate, but I'll give it a crack. Probably start off by where maybe you and I probably first met and became friends. I think we went to Corfu Grammar School together. You kind of turned up. We were in the same house at school, and you kind of turned up around year 9 or year 10. And I think you came in with the Leighton Hewitt vibes. You know, everyone. I think you came in with your tennis bag. I remember, and I think that was your way of kind of fitting in socially with us all. We all kind of recognized you as this amazing, great tennis player, which you were. You're obviously a very, very talented athlete in that field, but I think we probably first bonded in drama class of all things. Actually, I think I was no good at tennis. You were no good at footy, so we bonded probably in the drama department, mate. And we used to muck around doing theatre sports together, having a bit of a laugh, and trying to talk to girls at high school. Which you and me bonded over. Not too much talking. Funny. We tried a fair bit, which was good.
A couple of testosterone-fueled jocks in the old theatre department.
Exactly right. But no, I think we bonded. I probably bonded over your antics in the classroom and found them very entertaining, and it was quite very entertaining few years being at school together. But in terms of upbringing, mate, probably very lucky. I grew up in Melbourne with a father that played professional football, and two older brothers who are obviously very sporty in Andrew and Brett. So, and an angry mother who used to get pretty frustrated at all of us kind of carrying on. But, mate, I think high school was, obviously very lucky to go to a really good school and go to and have a pretty sporty and supportive family, which really helped in kind of what I'm doing now. And, but I guess probably, it wouldn't have all been smooth sailing in terms from a sporting perspective or even a school perspective at school. That's for sure. I probably, wasn't the greatest student. I was probably just, kind of in the middle and just kind of floated on by. And as a sportsman, I absolutely loved, my sporting life as a junior. But by no means was I the top players or getting selected for squads and those TAC teams and those Vic Metro teams. I was very, very far from that. I was just someone that was quite keen and passionate and was keen to just give everything a pretty decent crack. And a lot of the other players the other students kind of had something that I didn't have as a teenager, which was pubes. And And with that, and with that comes testosterone, and with that becomes muscles, and that becomes, you know, fast twitch fibers. So,
Steve Monaghetti, mate, running up the wing.
But
yeah.
I think I was definitely just someone with a pretty decent attitude, I think.
Yeah. Well, one of the questions I think I would like to pose to you is, like, one of the things I thought was really interesting.
Now, yes.
Well, thanks for clarifying that, because that was my second question. But first off, obviously growing up, when you mentioned Brett and Andrew, your brothers were very sporty and quite elite sportsmen, as I recall. So growing up, being the youngest sibling, did that sort of inspire you, and did that motivate you to, you know, up your game in terms of your sporting prowess and some of the things you were doing on the field?
I think so. I think that's probably where the competitiveness comes from. I think being, you know, 7 years younger than my two older brothers, you're constantly, you know, looking up to them and trying to fit in and trying to, you know, basically impress them and impress your old man, because they were probably doing things that I couldn't do at a young age, whether that be socially, athletically, and things like that. So everything was always kind of about, you know, gaining their approval and gaining their acceptance and trying to challenge myself to beat them. And I think that's definitely probably where the cliche, but probably where you start getting that kind of, you know, level of competitiveness against, you know, your older siblings. But I do remember my brother at my 21st told the story of when I took over him athletically. And quite a story. So Brett, my older brother, who was a really, really great footballer and actually an exceptional golfer. So he's very, very multi-talented. And that he was about 20, I don't think how old he was, about 23. And he just came back from an overseas trip and came back and moved home for a little bit. And I was 18. And I was kind of a bit bored. I said, "Oh, mate, do you want to play a bit of one-on-one basketball?" And he tells a story that he was like, "Yeah, great. You know, I've been on the piss for about 12 weeks in Europe, and I'm a bit sludgy, so I might need a bit of a confidence boost. So I might just, you know, beat the shit out of my younger brother and basketball." But during that kind of 12 months that he was away, that's when I actually got the pubes, and which was quite interesting. So he missed that kind of 12-month development phase, and he still remembers kind of, you know, cross over a little bit, you know, make a layup, and he's like, "Oh, okay, it's a bit bizarre." And I did it again, and then he was like, "Oh, okay, like I'll start switching on here." And I actually went and dunked on him, and I never ever forget his face. He just kind of had this look of despair and just shock on his face, and couldn't believe that this younger brother that he used to beat the absolute shit out of and make me cry, and I'd be going inside crying to mum and dad about how I was treated. Had just embarrassed him, you know, quite bad and quite easily. So he describes that as the moment where it was all downhill for him, and going on the up for myself. So I
wonder if there was a correlation between that moment and him losing his hair as well.
I think it was a really rough period. I think it was a really rough period for Brett. I think it was, you know, psychologically, the losing the hair stuff definitely had its issues with him, and he was just trying to use me as a punching bag, and that backfired for him. So, in summary, to answer your question, I think it does help your rivalry and your competitiveness, which is probably, you know, even today, I still kind of, when I play a good game and a good, I perform quite well or even quite badly, I still kind of look subconsciously for, you know, has my brothers text me or has my old man text me, because they're kind of the people that I kind of, you know, when they message me saying I've done really well, that's kind of means a lot more to me than, you know, than probably your players do. I don't know, it's a weird thing your players or your coaches do. It's just a weird thing that's in your mind that ever since you were younger, you've tried to impress your dad and your brothers. And whenever I get that phone call that they've been quite impressed, it kind of makes me feel pretty good. And I know when I've played bad when I get not one phone call or not one message.
Well, I really do want to talk about your coming of age story. It's interesting you bring that up about that pivotal moment between you and Brett, and your route to AFL stardom was very untraditional in a lot of ways. But before I touch on your journey and how you got to where you are now, I want to talk about, because obviously you brought up Alan and Carol, and they've always been very kind to me. I get along really well with them. But Alan is just a tremendous bloke. And I remember he was always so supportive of you. And the first time I met him, I went away from meeting Alan and I was like, he's the best bloke I've ever met in my life. This guy's such a good bloke. I just can't believe it. And I know he was always very supportive of your football and having played football himself. How was that having an old man who played obviously AFL football and was able to mentor you and guide you? Like, how influential has he been in your career?
Yeah, far out. Where do I start? Yeah, he's definitely probably the most supportive person I've ever come across, and I'm obviously biased because he's my old man, and he's probably extremely biased towards me because I'm his son. But I always find he'll always make an excuse for why I might have had a quiet game, and you go, oh, they didn't kick you the ball here, and you make it a position, but no, blah blah blah. So he's extremely supportive, but I think it probably goes back to he was my first ever junior football coach. He coached me for 3 years as a young kid, and I actually do remember when I was playing junior football and he was the head coach. He was actually a little bit harder on me than all of his everyone else. Not probably intentionally, but I think he just might have felt like he just didn't want to kind of favour his son as much as he did with the other kids. But in terms of what I've learned from him, mate, it's I've learned a ton of things from him, as a footballer, but probably more as a person. He's an extremely empathetic person. He's the world's nicest man. He probably can never ever say anything, bad about someone, or, he could never, if I broke the law really badly or something like that, I reckon he'd probably, if I'm completely in the wrong, I think he'd probably come in pretty hard for a character witness for me. But he, mate, he's been an amazing support, and he's the bloke that'll, to this day, he still calls me when I'm on the way to a game, and he'll still be the first to message me after a game. So, he's definitely a big reason for how I've, got to become a professional footballer. And, I think his support is definitely, second to none, mate, as cliche as that sounds. But, very lucky.
Well, I really feel like I need to, for this next question, maybe get into a little bit of character stuff here. Now, Callum, this is the time I should bring out Bruce McAvaney, because I want to talk about your AFL journey. Can you tell us about the way that you transcended from, obviously, your VFL career to your AFL career? Because you did so much in your football journey, didn't you, Callum? I mean, you obviously took the plunge and you played for the Port Melbourne Borough, and then you went over to Subiaco and played for the Subiaco Lions, and then obviously the West Coast, and then now Sydney. But talk us through the early stages and some of your football exploits and your journey thus far.
Yes, Bruce, thank you for that. Well, very nice to have Bruce on the line. It's great to hear your voice, mate. But mate, it's definitely, it was a roller coaster, and it still is, to be honest. I think I touched on it a little bit before. I think when we were at Caulfield Grammar, I think playing first 18 was like being selected for Australia. I missed out a couple of times and was sitting on the bench for a good chunk of that time, which kind of fueled a fair bit of fire in me to kind of progress my football and definitely prove a lot of people wrong about what they kind of probably thought of me as a footballer, as a junior. That definitely fueled a fair bit of fire. But I think I'll try and keep this as short as possible, but I probably finished high school just as a mediocre footballer, and just was still really passionate and keen, and actually got asked to be a TAC under 19 player. So I think every TAC player could, every TAC club could select, I think, 1 or 2 19-year-olds. And that could be through circumstance of like maybe that player had a knee reconstruction in their top age year and could play again next year. But I got asked, invited, and I never forget doing the whole pre-season and got back from that pre-season and did the pre-season and got told I was selected as one of the 2 19-year-olds. So I was like, oh, fantastic, like great, I get to play, dedicate a whole year of football to playing TAC Cup footy. First year out of school, and I could just work part time and muck around and play footy. And hey, who knows, from there I could be drafted. So it was a pretty good advantage to have. And I remember rounds 1, 2, and 3 went past, and I was getting selected, and I'm like, why am I getting picked? Like I'm the 19-year-old. Like I thought you'd pick me. And I remember getting pulled in to a meeting by the coach at the time and the general manager of the Sandringham Dragons at the time, and they pulled me in and said, we've actually given your spot to someone else. And that was 3 or 4 rounds in, and I was absolutely heartbroken, put in absolute tears at the time, and couldn't believe that I had to hang around for a whole summer and get 3 or 4 rounds in and just basically and the coach never rang me since. So that was probably a moment where I just got really angry and really furious, and then had to go back to local football. And then from local footy, I had to build my way up to getting into the AFL. So I went back and played for my local footy club in Caulfield Grammarians. And then from there, got invited to the Collingwood Football Club, who had a VFL team at the time, so I could be one of their top-up players. Had a really great experience there. Got coached by Gavin Brown and Paul LeCuria, who are really big supporters of mine, and probably should really reach out to them at the moment. But broke my foot round 2, and I missed 12 months of footy. So I'm kind of 2 years behind, and I'm kind of like, oh God, wasn't too enjoyable. And then I got some advice from Collingwood at the time, which were really quite nice of them. They said, you need to play some footy. Like, you can't just, you've had 2 years you've had a rough trot, and you need to bank some games. And so I went to Port Melbourne, and I did 2 seasons there, and made really great friends, really enjoyed my time there. Really good footy club. Had me ups and downs there, that's for sure. But I got invited to 2 national draft camps while I was there. And, when you get invited there as a mature age player, you kind of think, you're going to get drafted and things like that. But it didn't really kind of pan out the way that I would have hoped. And I think I probably over, I reckon, 2 or 3 years, I, got interviewed by probably every club in the AFL. And, I certainly took those kind of setbacks to heart when you're getting interviewed by every single club. And
well, can I bring up a personal moment? And I hope you don't mind me bringing this up. But I can personally remember sitting with you in your home, and I think it was just, you might have been dropped for the Port final, the Port Borough final or something. And I remember sitting there with you, and I remember you were noticeably devastated, and I think that would have broken a lot of people. And I think, like, in that position, a lot of people would have given up and quitted. But I could not believe how much that actually accelerated your drive, because I think that, for me, watching you, seemed to be like a pivotal moment where you went, nah, this isn't happening again. I'm going to take my footy to the next level. And that's exactly what you did. So what were you feeling in that moment? And then what was the actual fundamental decision that made you go, okay, I'm going to go over and I'm going to have a crack. I'm going to go to WA, and I'm not going to give up. I'm going to get drafted. I'm going to do this.
I think, I was pretty fed up at the time. I felt that, that season particularly, I kind of missed a few games at the start of the year. I had a bad knee injury over the pre-season. So I was always kind of fighting to kind of get back in that team. And that team at the time went through that year undefeated. And I think it's like the only team in 100 years that's gone through undefeated in the VFL and then won the grand final. So they had so much momentum, and I was just trying to get in this team and just hang on, because the year before I had a really great year. I was team of the year in the VFL, and missed out. And I kind of just thought the next year I was going to accelerate to this amazing level, and obviously through injury. But I think going into that final series and obviously getting dropped for the grand final was something that it was pretty heartbreaking. I wasn't the only player that to happen to. There was probably 3 or 4 of us that were in that mix to get selected, and it just didn't happen. It was kind of a bit of a fall from grace after having this amazing year in the VFL before, and then going into this grand final. And then I actually knew before the grand final that I was going to the national draft camp. So I was really paranoid about going to this national draft camp, and then clubs going, well, if you can't get a game in your VFL team, why should we select you in the AFL team? Which is a completely fair enough question. And so my mind was kind of really, really flabbergasted. And but the team obviously won that grand final, and it's pretty difficult. I had a lot of close friends there and a few celebrations, but post that season, I kind of just realised I need a bit of a change. Like, all these clubs looking at me, I'm playing in the VFL. I've played 2 pretty good seasons, but something's not giving here. Like, I just can't seem to. I was playing football that was pretty good, but I think I just felt like I wasn't dominating. Yeah. And the reality was I needed to play in the ruck, and I needed to play centre half forward, and I needed to do that every single week for 25 games and take my game to a new level. So Subiaco Footy Club got in touch and just said, mate, would you be interested in moving to Perth? And my first reaction was, no, I've never been to Perth in my life. Like, I'm not going to do that. And, probably my old man just said, mate, like, don't just shut it down. Just have a think about it. Like, you should at least fly over there and at least go and train with them and just see what it's like. So I just thought, you know what, I'll do that. I missed Port Melbourne Footy Club training, and I went over there for a week to just train in WA. And I came back after that week, and I just took a massive risk. And my dad and my parents were like, mate, why don't you just give it a go, buddy? Because you're obviously not enjoying kind of living in Melbourne and doing uni and trying to get drafted. And why don't you, move to WA, transfer uni, get a job over there, just have some more life experience, to be honest, because I was kind of putting everything on hold. But you probably remember at the time, mate, I was probably putting every single thing on hold in my life to kind of get drafted as my 20s. Like, I wouldn't even go out with you guys in town.
I remember. You were very, very dedicated, very dedicated.
Yeah, so I wouldn't even go see my mates who were going out for a drink because I didn't want to explain to them, I'm not going to have a beer. And guys were going on trips away and overseas trips, and I just wouldn't go. I don't know, got pushed, to be honest, pretty hard to just give it an experience. And I packed a suitcase and went over there absolutely shitting myself, to be honest. Didn't really have much experience living away from home at all. Had no mates over there, but full credit to the Subiaco Footy Club that they put in a huge effort in trying to make me feel welcome. They paid me pretty well as well, which was good. Got a fair bit of nice match payment every week, which is good fun. But moved over there and just really made it my mission to dedicate myself to that footy club for 12 months and try and make it a home. And that footy club welcomed me with open arms, and I played some really good footy for that season.
Yeah, and then as a result of your results, obviously playing for Subiaco Lions, was it then after that you got rookied to West Coast? Is that how it worked?
Yeah, mate. I honestly had given up. Like, I'd honestly, like, not probably physically, but I'd honestly mentally kind of just thought to my head, like, I'm sick and tired of having to try and impress all these people. And just be told that I'm not going to get selected again and yada, yada, yada. So I kind of found that when I did that, I just was playing my natural game and I was playing really well, and I had a great bunch of mates that I was really enjoying playing with. So the enjoyment factor of playing with the Subiaco Footy Club WA was, through the roof. And the grounds are so big there that I didn't lay a tackle for 3 years.
Wow.
The grounds are so massive, getting so much of the ball. But we had getting selected was at the end of the season. Fremantle rang me, and they said, "Oh, do you want to come and train for a week?" And I said, "Oh, are you guys asking me to train for like a position on the list, or do you want just kind of like a few punching bags that Aaron Sandland's pretty keen to?" And they said, no, we're interested in week training. I'm like, yeah, all right, fair enough, 100%. So I actually had surgery a couple of weeks before that, and I just didn't tell them. I just didn't tell them. I said, "Oh, mate, yeah, no worries, I'm ready to go," and rocked up for the first session. And after about 2 days, Hawthorn rang me, and I was like, yeah, like Hawthorn rang me. And I was like, oh, and they're like, "Oh, mate, we've got the rookie draft coming up. We're pretty keen to select you." I think it was like pick 16 or something. So I was like, "Oh, can you come down to Melbourne for a medical?" So I got on a flight. They flew me down, and then Fremantle were like, "Where are you for training?" And I'm like, "Oh, like you guys haven't guaranteed me anything, so I'm going to go chat to the Hawthorn Footy Club as well." So, and they got a little bit funny about it, which is fair enough. But I just said, "Oh, look, I've got to do it for me." Chat to the Hawks, and I rocked up to the Hawks for training, and then they told me that I couldn't train. And I'm like, "You've just flown me from Perth to the Waverley, and you're telling me that I can't train." So anyway, they were all right about it, and then I went back to WA. Got back to WA, and I had a phone call from West Coast, all within a week, and I'm like, "What's going on here?" And West Coast. I'd spoken to West Coast for like 3 years in a row. And I remember saying on the phone, like, "Look, like, I'm not going to come in and like just say to you guys, like, I'm really keen to play. Like, you guys know I am. So just, let me know." And I went in just for a quick medical, and then really the rookie draft came. I didn't even watch it, mate. I didn't even watch it. I just be like, "Oh, well, like, I'd rather just not be disappointed again." So I was at Woolworths in WA, just going shopping, and then got a couple of texts, and I was like, I say, "Mate," like just like with like emojis and stuff like that. And I was just like, "Oh, what's going on here?" Checked my phone, and then I went on the website, and my name was there, and it was by West Coast. So
that's awesome.
I think West Coast had the first. I think it was like West Coast had the first pick, then it was Freo. That's West Coast, Hawthorn, then it was Freo, and then so I think West Coast knew Freo and Hawthorn might have been keen, but yeah, and then West Coast grabbed me, so it's great.
That's unbelievable. And like, obviously you had a great career at West Coast and now a fantastic career at the Swans too. But I remember when I went to the grand final parade and I saw you on a grand final float, and that was an amazing moment for me, because just being a friend, man, I was actually so proud of you. Just like standing at the grand final parade, hundreds of thousands of people around, everyone cheering you on, and I see you on this float. You and the Queen wave to everyone.
I think it might have been these ones.
You were doing a whole bunch of stuff. There was a lot going on that flight, but I was just so proud of you, man. And like, one of the questions I was so eager to ask you was like, what was it like, obviously playing in a grand final at West Coast and walking out on the ground, and knowing at that point probably that all your hard work, all those dreams that you had just come into fruition, and you're walking out in an AFL grand final after the journey you've had. Must have been an incredible feeling.
I think it was, mate, like, it was disbelief, to be honest. Like, I felt like, I remember like just that whole week, just like couldn't even believe that, like, 2 years ago, like 3 years before this, I'm struggling to get a kick. Like, and next thing you know, I'm playing in a grand final. But I reckon I'm starting to get to the point to realise like how hard it is to make a grand final. Like, but for years, like, I was really angry after that game, because the only thing you think about is like trying to, obviously, take home a medal, with a medal around your neck, and that would have just been the icing on the cake. Like, I would have just like been so like over the moon, and it just kind of feels like it didn't. I was never at that grand final, to be honest, but. Like, yeah, the highlights, obviously the full week, so full on, like the highlights. Like, I remember kind of what that story you said, like all my schoolmates were like in the crowd along, I'm not sure what street is it? Is it Swanson Street? Is it something? Yeah, like
Yeah.
Foster Street. I saw all my
My
mates.
sense of direction is appalling, but I was on some street watching you.
Yeah, I don't know what street it was. I think you were coming home from King Street, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
In the city, in the CBD.
Yeah, seeing all the boys around and kind of seeing the man waving, and like I was like, this is pretty incredible. I think that they could believe it as well. And but I remember, rocking up. I didn't sleep all week. I remember rocking up to the game, just being like far out. Like all I care about is like winning and yada yada yada. And it just I think the build up was the most exciting bit. But then as soon as the bounce went, like it was just a disaster. Like it was just. It was a pretty, obviously, pretty shitty game to be a part of, and we obviously didn't at the time really have any, didn't really compete as good as what Hawthorn did, and Hawthorn absolutely smacked us. And I haven't watched that game ever since. I didn't, I can't even remember kind of having an impact on that game personally at all, which was pretty, pretty disappointing, and it didn't really feel. Kind of felt like, all the excitement and everything like that just gone. And it was just really devastating and really hard to probably get over. I felt like my performance was pretty shitty on the day, which it was. And that was my last game for West Coast. And I do look back with and try and look at all the positives about, not many people get that experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are fantastic like superstars of this industry that have never ever, played a final, let alone a grand final. So and I got that chance, and would have loved to have grabbed it, a bit better than what we did as a team. But West Coast, a few years later, had an amazing performance on grand final day. So part of me kind of was really happy for him.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I mean, throughout your career, I think you've proven that you've really learned from every mistake you've ever made, and you've been able to build on your career. So obviously, that's something that I think is a great testament to you as an individual, you as a human, as Callum Sinclair.
I prefer you say that in a voice, maybe the Bruce voice.
I was considering it. I was like, oh, shall I hit the Brucey here? I don't know. But talk us through where you're at now, obviously, with the Swannies, the influence guys like Horse have had on your career, and how that's been for you being at that club.
Yeah, like it's been a pretty, I absolutely love my time, here in Sydney. Like it's been obviously the transition coming from Perth to Sydney, to very, very different cities, two very different football landscapes. So
absolutely.
Like where we're at now, it's like probably came to the footy club the first 4 years where we had a ton of experience in the team. Like we had so many, 150 to 250 game players, and then all within a couple of years, we're a very young side now, and I've suddenly become, I read an article the other week that said that I was a veteran. So it's hopefully it's not a sign that that I'm coming to the end. But as we know, mate, we've all got a expiry date at some point. So, but mate, look, obviously things are going, as good as they can be at the moment. Like we're not, as I'm sure you know, mate, the season's not the most ideal, situation at the moment with teams not being able to play home games. There's rescheduling of fixtures. So from the outside, it probably looks like a little bit of a shambles. But I think, internally, the structure of the week is pretty similar for us, I guess. We're training and things like that. But you just got to kind of move with it a little bit. It's definitely a season like no other. So, and you just don't know what the next 2 weeks, could hold. Like you guys are now in lockdown. So, the Victorian clubs have obviously, got out of there. So it does look like we'll be able to get some games out, for the next month at least, and hopefully a little bit further. But I think it's a challenging year for all players, but particularly the staff members at the footy club, mate, as well. We've obviously got a lot of staff that have unfortunately have been let go, and there's some close friends as well. So it's difficult. But, I don't know. I think as a player, we're probably a bit lucky, mate. We're still kind of got our jobs and we're still kind of, chasing a ball most days at the footy club.
Yeah, right. And it's interesting because I followed your football career very closely because obviously because of our personal relationship. But it's funny, I bought a Swan scarf as soon as you got drafted by the Swans. So I'm a Swans fan now. Very, very much so.
Well, I will say, mate, in the few times you have been in the rooms post games, I've actually gone into the showers and no joke, boys have gone, "Is that Elliot Loney?" I'm like, "Yeah." How do you know Elliot Loney? Oh, well, we grew up together and we live a few streets away, yada yada yada. And mate, your stardom at that footy club is a lot bigger than Buddy Franklin or Adam or a lot of people have asked. I think you've actually sent a few abusive Snapchats to a few of the boys as well. So I think we're trying to get you to do a bit of stand-up routine for us at some stage, hopefully in the future. But yeah, mate. How would you rate your football ability? I reckon it's probably improved.
Oh, it's well, look, at high school I was pretty. Yeah, exactly. Well, at high school I was incredibly ordinary, Chief. As you know, I only started really playing footy properly pretty much more so after high school. Like I played a little bit of amateur footy, just like old Brighton, played a few cracky matches, played C-grade amateurs for a little bit at the Fields, did a full pre-season there. And I think who was the coach? I'm trying to remember who the bloody coach was. Anyway, he absolutely hated me. And he got me off the ground within moments. He thought he'd put me out there in the freckle, and he's like, "Get him the fuck off the ground. Get that bloke off the ground."
Well, you probably had the best rig. Yeah, I reckon you fell in. There's always, particularly junior footy, the guys that have the best rigs. They tend to look like they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And, so, your rig is obviously quite exceptional, mate. So probably had that
Suki now.
Obviously, he obviously knows what's going on, but they got a big concern when you ran out there with a tennis racket. I thought
Well, it was pretty funny. I remember, I think I was playing an under-19s game for old Brighton, and the coach was like, "Oh, get him out there, mate. Get him out there. He's a big bloke. Put him in full back. And then within moments, mate, like the guy, I could see him on the sidelines because he was so far away. It was just like this. He was screaming and jumping because I was holding the guy by the jumper and just like chopping his arms and just like doing all this stuff. Came away like he kicked a bag on me. I reckon he kicked 6 goals on me in a quarter. The coach wouldn't even speak to me after the game. It was fucking livid.
I will say, like at that level, like I think at local footy, like with coaches not like talking to their players after games. Like I think it's a bit like, I think, particularly at thirds level, I think we're all just there for a bit of a laugh.
Try and tell them that to a local coach.
Exactly right. So, but I was saying, I was just had a thought before about you as well. Is that George Hewitt, who's a very good footballer at our footy club, he constantly walks around the footy club doing the Mr. Parker, and he walks around the place going like, I remember a few weeks ago he came in the physio room and I think he knows that you and me are friends, and he goes, how's Loney going, mate? And then he just walks off going.
That's good stuff.
Yeah,
That's good stuff.
I think in the past we've seen a few people like, just random kick the footy on the oval, and I think George will kind of sit there and go, "Oh, what have we got here?" Like,
yeah. Well, I remember a while ago I actually hit you up to do a video with some of the Swans players, and that you were such a legend about it. Got I remember Lear and like Dan Hanbury and quite a few players. I think did a little Mr. Parker video just endorsing Mr. Parker in the 9As, which I was very appreciative of.
Yeah, so it's no, mate, it's growing leagues, mate, and they're definitely the players are definitely keen to be recruited at some stage to the 9As. So fingers crossed.
Mr. Parker. Yeah, Mr. Parker. Yeah.
Fingers crossed they can do. Lewis Melican is a fan actually. He actually big 9As fan. So
no, he's a big boy, mate. I remember seeing him in the video. He's a great man, Lewis. He gave a big pump up the 9As, which I'm very very happy about. Yeah.
Nah, it's all been good.
Nah, it's awesome, mate. So who's a couple of little rapid fire questions? Who's the toughest bloke you've ever played on?
Aaron Sandilands for sure. It's kind of like it's like rucking against a gum tree. Just like this guy just won't move. It's kind of, I've always described it as when you're at a boundary throw in and the ball comes in, and if you're caught behind him, all you can see is just his number 31 just sitting in your face. You're just sitting there going, oh my God. So actually a really, really nice bloke, Aaron. I remember chatting to him when I was training there, but I dare say there was a few ruckmen popping the champagne when he retired, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely a sleepless night, coming up against Aaron because you obviously so damaging. But yeah, Aaron Sandilands certainly, and lined up on Luke Hodge a couple of times when I was playing forward. Yeah. So he ran rings around you for a couple of times.
And who do you most like to walk out there on the ground with? Is there a player that springs to mind?
Mine was Matt Brutus. Like I just absolutely loved running out with him every single week. Just probably because we probably had similar kind of journeys, I guess. We came from the Subiaco Footy Club. Both came off a rookie list and probably did it the longer and harder way. And just was a great mentor. But yeah, I think Matt was probably a bit. Obviously, he's not. You wouldn't class him as an underrated player. He's a Brownlow medalist, for God's sake. But I would, I don't think he probably got the accolades and the credit he probably deserved. To be honest, if I'm being honest, I think I think internally at West Coast he's loved, but I think across the league, I would have liked to have seen him, be a bit more, publicised for how much of an incredible player he was. So. I think Matt's the one that, I think he'll probably the one I enjoyed playing with it the most.
Well, a bit of trivia there with Pritis. I remember I was actually doing a bit of work with Andrew at the time for Kindle Living at the Brownlow medal. And the night he won the Brownlow, me and Andy had a bit of a chinwag to Pritis. And I remember standing there and we were like, he was like, "G'day, mate, Andrew Sinclair, Callum Sinclair's brother." And I had a bit of a chat and I was like, "G'day, Matt, Elliot Loney, friend of Cal. How are you, mate?"
Yeah.
And then moments later. Yeah, massive hands, mate. You just about shook my head.
Yeah, exactly. Massive hands in some spaghetti bolognese, he said.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, shortly after, I couldn't believe it because I think we were driving back and we heard on the radio that he just won the Brownlow. And I think at the time, obviously, as you said, he's a tremendous player, and obviously it's good that he has won a Brownlow because it showcases, the fact that he deserves one. But at the time, he was an underdog, and there was a lot of people that on paper you thought were going to get the Charlie, and then there it is.
Well, he didn't get selected in the All Australian that year.
Yeah,
and he wins the Brownlow medal. So there's I don't know. It's really the real bizarre one. So which I think I'd be pretty dirty about, but I don't know. Pritter's a pretty understated kind of guy, and I think he's that wouldn't bother him too much. But
really nice bloke.
Yeah, the Charlie's probably a bit of an FU to the selectors.
So apart from your dad, who's your favourite footballer of all time?
All time, I think growing up it was Wayne Carey.
Yeah, the duck. I knew you were going to say that. I got that. There's that photo of you and the duck when you were a kid.
The photo of me, a handstand, not a handstand, like a pretend specky over the duck, which was the highlight of my junior footy days. And then I used to love Byron Pickett. I don't know if you remember him. He used to.
I remember.
Yeah, he's an absolute superstar, and he played a fair bit. I was a big North Melbourne fan, and I used to love watching Byron Pickett. And he was just absolutely unreal. So I think Byron Pickett, Wayne Carey, and trying to think who else I used to love. I used to love Jonathan Brown when he was, at his peak. He was absolutely unreal, and a lot of the key posse. Nick Rewalt, when he was up and going, he was an absolute star. The peak of his career, he was unstoppable. But yeah, I think probably Wayne Carey and Byron Pickett.
Yeah, interesting. And mate, let's talk about Callum Sinclair moving forward, because I know you have a lot of dreams and aspirations after your football is done as well. So, 10, 20 years time, where is Callum Sinclair? What would he ideally like to be doing?
10 years time. Look, mate, it's pretty interesting, mate. I still feel about 20. I can't believe I've just turned 30. You probably feel the same.
Mate, it's crazy. How quickly does the time fly?
It feels like yesterday that we were just in Day Street Brighton, scrambling for a subway.
Having a couple of souvlaki's.
Yeah. So, mate, 10 years is going to come pretty quick, Joe, in the last 10 years. But, mate, there's a few things I'm really enjoying doing. I'm obviously, much like yourself, mate, I love doing the podcast media stuff. So I'd love to do something like that in the future, and don't know what form that would take just yet, but kind of, enjoy having a laugh and, chatting to people, whether it be in person or online and things like that. So I don't know, mate, maybe the podcast, radio, media game might be something that I'd love to do, but they're obviously pretty competitive spots to get in. But doing a little bit of obviously went to uni, so I've done a little bit of property, kind of commercial property kind of work experience over the last few years at a company here in Sydney, which have been really helpful in trying to upskill me to maybe transition into that one day. But I'll definitely say those two industries are the ones that I'm quite interested in the most. I don't know, mate. I might even take up a bit of acting. I was just about to
say. I remember one day in Year 11 drama, I believe it was, you delivered a monologue, and I think the whole class was reduced to tears. It was it was an amazing piece. It might have been, what was that thing that play that we did? Was it Wednesday's Child, or what was it called? Is that what it's called? Wednesday's Child?
Yeah, Wednesday's Child. Yeah.
And you delivered an Oscar-worthy performance, I remember one day. And Mr. Machos was beside himself.
Yeah. I always found that you and me copped you, me, and I think there's a few other boys were in the drama class, and we copped a bit of flack for doing drama and theatre studies. Yeah. But I always found it was pretty good because there were so many girls in there.
Mate, it was unbelievable. Yeah,
so many girls in there. So you could do romantic scenes with girls, and while all the blokes are doing economics and stuff, and I'm like, why would I do that? All these girls doing so it definitely helped my confidence in trying to spark a conversation with a female. I'd be pretty keen to maybe I'm one of those people that would give anything a crack, and mate, if I don't know, mate, you're obviously in the acting game, Nate, so if you need a Robin to your Batman, I might be available for you. And you're obviously doing some comedy stuff, so I like to think I'm quite funny from time to time. Others may differ, so I might be able to have a laugh.
No, you're certainly a hilarious bastard. So we'll definitely have to film a few gags, I think, at some point.
Might even do a bit of
a bit of Parker. Yeah.
I'd like to do a voiceover for the 9As. Maybe we can make a character and do a voiceover.
Oh, mate, that would be unbelievable. But you've opened up a can of worms there. I'll tell you what, it's been an absolute journey for the prestigious 9As.
Maybe I could be the voice for a young developing tap ruckman.
That would be perfect. You'd really be getting into character for that role.
From a basketball background.
I mean, look at that. That sounds like someone who's speaking from experience there.
But yeah. So hopefully, keen to give anything a go. But not going to put any ceiling on what I do when I finish football. I'll definitely be open to many opportunities, and fingers crossed they come. But the world's a bit of a tough place at the moment, mate. So the recession. So hopefully I've got a few more years of chasing around football.
Yeah, no, mate. Well spoken. And Cal, I don't want to waste too much of your time because I know you're a busy man, influential man. Fingers in a lot of pies.
No, Elliot, always a pleasure to come and have a chat, mate. And look forward to seeing where this platform actually takes you. And I do appreciate you having me on the show. I don't feel like I'm up to the caliber of the Kyrgioses and the Vineys of the world, but looking forward to seeing how it turns out.
No, don't feel it. It's a start. I just want to say, obviously, as a mate, some coach you, for so years, inspiration to see how far you've come. And yes, we were talking about it earlier, but it's so inspirational. Because even in high school, junior days, I think a lot of people, in terms of maybe reach the AFL heights that you obviously have done, and see you do that such an incredible fashion is highly inspirational. So there's a reason I'm still going to I think the reason is
well, mate, it's very, very kind of you to say, and I do urge anyone that if they do, as cliche as that sounds, if they do have they're quite, focused and perhaps a little bit selfish about what they want to do, anything is achievable, and you can't, and if you just got to try and just give it an absolute go, absolute crack, and go absolute balls out of it, because if you don't, you'll wake up one day and you'll definitely regret it. So thank you for your kind words, Elliot. Much appreciated.
That's exactly Monday.
Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you very soon with more videos and more gags. Cheers.